the revolutionary ankle lock system, an integrated brace built into the boots, delivering unrivaled support, protecting ligaments from twists, tears, and trauma.
Hello again, it's Frank Gilfeather from Frank's Noble Art. Let me give you my take on what happened in the fight between Joshua Buatsi and Zach Parker last weekend. Very controversial for one particular reason, the verdict. It was a terrible verdict, which Buatsi was given at the end of a really interesting contest, but one which Buatsi did virtually nothing. He was a plodder in that one. He was a one-trick pony, whereas Parker was the guy who was inventive and innovative and did all the right things in terms of punching and moving. So if Buatsi is going to be going to a higher level, he needs to up his game in dramatic fashion. Now, early on in the contest, one of the fight commentators mentioned that the winner of that one might in fact be in line to fight the winner of the big fight coming up soon between Anthony Yarde and David Benavidez. Well, my take on that is that neither of them would deserve to be in the ring against these guys, particularly Benavidez, whom I would expect would win that contest. I think Benavidez would destroy both of them, perhaps even in the same night. So that's where we're at with this contest. I think one of the big things that comes from this is, of course, the judging. One judge gave it as a draw, and the others gave it, I think, as 96-94 for Buatsi. Now, there's the thing. The governing body should now step in and tell these judges they're incompetent, they're not good enough, and they should be taken off the rota of all the fights that they're scheduled to judge in the future. That's the way boxing's got to be. It's got to be tougher, and it should come from the top. Whichever of the governing bodies is in charge should take prompt action and stiff action. Let's get rid of these judges. We now know that the fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis isn't going to happen. And now Jake Paul is scurrying around looking for an opponent further down the line with Andre Ward, the latest to be mentioned. But there's a bigger issue at play here, and that's the future of professional boxing. If you look at the WBA, for example, they were prepared to allow Davis, who's the lightweight champion, to box Paul, who's a cruiserweight. It's totally bizarre. But the other thing is that Paul now has a ranking in the WBA ratings at number 14. Now, why are they doing that? Are they hoping that eventually, in time, Paul will become a proper boxer and that they will reap the benefit of him fighting perhaps a big name under their umbrella and they're taking their percentage as usual? That might be what they're thinking. But Jake Paul isn't a boxer. He never will be a boxer. We've seen him too many times in action to realise that he hasn't got the natural ability to make it. So quite why they've given him a ranking of number 14 is anybody's guess. But I think we all have our ideas. Thankfully, the Gervonta Davis fight with Paul will not now happen. And let's hope that the governing bodies at some point have a word with this guy and say, look, you either become a proper boxer and box in the cruiserweight division against other cruiserweights who are ranked, or you're not going to be part of the rankings, and get rid of them. I must say, I liked what I saw of Pat Brown in his demolition job of Felix Valera in his US debut last weekend. Valera came into the ring as a very experienced campaigner and, of course, a former world champion. And Brown had a big deal, a big fight on his hands there, because up until that point, he had just 4 contests, 4 wins. But he did the job. In the second round, it was all over. Now, I think a key thing here for young boxers who are looking perhaps to go into the professional ranks is to look at Brown and say, well, you did your stuff in the amateurs. You made your mistakes. You learned all the things you need to learn in the amateur game. You boxed in the Olympics. All great stuff. Only then did you turn professional. And I think that that's what young boxers, young amateur boxers should look at and think, right, I'm going to learn my trade before I even dream of entering the pro ranks. But here's another thing. I like the fact that Brown was the first man over to console and to show concern when Valera was stopped in that second round and he was toiling and he was struggling to get off the ground. Who helped him up? Brown helped him up. And I think that's a great thing for a young boxer to show as a potential role model to other boxers coming through the ranks. You have to show respect for your opponent because after all, these guys are showing great courage, even stepping into the ring. So what we've got is a young man on the path, which I'm sure will be guided well by Eddie Hearn, his promoter. And, you know, on that showing, he has a great future in the cruiserweight ranks. Will he be a heavyweight? Possibly. He's 26 now, and he could kind of bulk up into a heavyweight. But my advice would be stick to the cruiserweights, stick to what you know, and you could be a world champion maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now. George Foreman once said, you have to lose sometimes to realize what's worth fighting for. I think that might be in Anthony Joshua's mind, as if we're to believe the rumours, he's joining Team Usyk. Now, what's he trying to do? It's a positive step. I think he's probably looked at his career and thinking, well, where am I going? It possibly won't get another world title fight because Usyk's beat him twice. And his career is now at a stage where he's got to decide, am I going to continue or is it worth doing? Should I retire? I like what he's doing in his home country, his ancestral country of Nigeria. He's taking the message out there about the positivity of boxing, and he's doing something real and something special. Now, I really hope that he has something left in the tank for another 1 or 2 big fights. Eddie Hearn tells us that he's going to box on the undercard of one of the promotions that Hearn is putting on before the end of the year. Not much time left, but I hope he does perform. And I hope he does reinvent himself and think, well, maybe I could do something special. Or is he simply getting himself ready for one final, big final payday against Tyson Fury? We never know where Fury's going to be from day to day. I've retired. I'm going to make a comeback. I've retired again. So that one's still on hold. But Joshua still has a lot to offer to boxing. He's 36 now. He's had 32 contests. He's had a really brilliant career as a world champion. And maybe he just feels he's got something, one final thing, one final push left before he calls it a day. I hope so.
The revolutionary ankle lock system, an integrated brace built into the boots, delivering unrivaled support, protecting ligaments from twists, tears, and trauma.